process of transitional justice for Cambodian people. Have two very interesting presentations, one slightly easier than the other. But we went on to look at the question of evil, the question of punishment, the question of whether tribunals, criminal trials can ever possibly hope to effectively punish and deal with concepts such as retribution, vengeance, deterrence. We didn't touch so much on due process or civil activity. We had a few issues on that. But today we're going to look specifically at the Yugoslav Tribunal, the ICTY. We're going to look at how effective the ICTY has been for reconciliation in the Balkans. It's a difficult subject. How have anyone who's been to the countries of the former Yugoslavia? Anyone been? No one been to the Balkans? Okay. It's a beautiful part of the world. There's a lot of history there. It's always been at the crossroads of Asia and Europe, and for that reason it's very multicultural, very diverse, but there's also been a lot of conflict there over the centuries.
You can request that guy to video it.
Being what took place in the 1990s. So, I was hoping we could have a presentation. Do you have people that are presenting today? Is it on PowerPoint or is it? It is?
PowerPoint.
Okay. Would it be completely impossible to present without PowerPoint?
Yeah. No.
No, because as long as you can see the screen.
Okay. So the people who
we
can one group do it with?
You've got graphs.
Presentations afterward. Except the seminar starts off with the ICTY and we need to
Act of God.
that first. Well, 69% complete. Okay. Alright, so which is the first group? Let me get the names.
One.
One thing I wanted to tell you before we start, just to give you an idea of what it is we're going to be talking about today. Obviously the debate on the ICTY and whether this has been effective in terms of reconciliation of different ethnic communities within the Balkans. We're going to be looking at the nature of mass violence and how that might differ from ordinary violence. We touched on that a little last week, but we're looking at some of the research that you've done in relation to how crowds and mass participation in violence impacts an individual and the challenges that poses for punishment, especially when we look at it from, well, how can society deal with that level of mass criminality. We're going to look at what some of the academics have been talking about as trials being a centrepiece of social repair. This concept of the society that was broken by the human rights abuses, by the dictatorship or non-democratic processes. Is it possible to almost use medicalized analogies? Can a society truly heal itself? The sorts of questions we're going to be looking at there involve those sorts of issues. So then we come on to talk about restorative justice, and we ask ourselves what is restorative justice? How do we define it? Is it even possible in or after mass atrocity? And we look at a little bit more at the contrast between individual and collective guilt. And the last thing we'll look at, again, leading in, as I said at the beginning, leading into next week's seminar on true commissions, the concept of reconciliation. And there's some interesting reading on reconciliation and also on academic studies of reconciliation of the transitional justice mechanism. Okay, I see we're 92% complete. CHKDSK is verifying security descriptors. I have no idea what that means. So, the first group, they're going to be advocating for the benefits of the ICTY. And can you identify yourselves with a show of hands? So that's you four. And then the other four, the back. Okay. You both definitely need PowerPoints to present. If we present on your computer, yes. Yeah. Because I'm not sure how this is going to work.
Okay, today's presentation cancel.
Even if you don't have anything to present to the group in terms of visuals, you'll be able to presumably read off your computers to yourself. Alice?
Yeah, can we just move the
hang on, let's see where we go.
It should be okay now.
Hi. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties, but not necessarily.
That's good for me, sorry, I'm late.
That's all right. Okay, this is looking hopeful. We'll have speaking to you soon.
Of retributive justice. So what we'll seek to do is we'll look at the ICTY through its dispensation of retributive justice, what traits or elements of restorative justice and reconciliation are present. And the elements that we're going to be focusing on and looking at throughout the history of the ICTY when it comes to restorative justice is we'll look at if justice that has been dispensed or initiatives by the ICTY repairing harm that has been caused by some of the crimes. And most importantly, if people and communities participating in the repairing process through a cooperative process at all times. When it comes to reconciliation, we will try and see whether the ICTY's history through its judgments and its initiatives are working towards achieving coexistence, forgiveness, mercy, and where there is a shared comprehensive vision, mutual healing, and harmony. And then whether there is an element of finding a way to balance issues such as truth and justice so that the slow changing of behaviors are visible. And to kick us off, my superstar colleagues will take you through the elements and how they're highlighted through certain examples of initiatives and judgments of the ICTY. Thank you.
Okay, so some opening quotes. According to Carla Del Ponte, who is the prosecutor at the ICTY, was the prosecutor at ICTY, well-administrated justice does contribute even more than religion to long-term peace of mind for the victims and their families, which is necessary prerequisite for reconciliation. Also, supporters of international war crimes tribunals maintain that these tribunals can aid the reconciliation process in three particular ways, which is by seeing that justice is done, by establishing the truth about crimes committed, and by individualizing guilt. ICTY outreach program was established in 1999. With the establishment of outreach, the tribunal recognized that it had a role to play in the process of dealing with past in former Yugoslavia, one of the key challenges for societies emerging from conflict. Outreach now is a modern and robust body with the specialist knowledge required to fulfill the tribunal's mandate of contributing to peace and security in the region. Its mission is to put into practice the principle of open justice. For justice to be truly done, it must be seen to be done. Every year, thousands of people come into direct contact with the tribunal through a variety of activities. Some of the examples are the one-day events held in the towns where some of the most serious crimes took place, included candid and comprehensive presentations from panels of tribunal staff who were directly involved in the investigation, prosecution, and adjudication of alleged crimes. In this way, bridging the gap with local communities. Since 2011, the tribunal has sought to tap into its potential by reaching out to high schools and university students. Outreach and legal staff traveled to their classrooms and lecture halls to speak about crimes that took place in their communities during the 1890s, and the ICTY's role in punishing those responsible.
You always do that.
For this project, the outreach team set out to harness their ability to step away from the past and to view it more objectively. Their presentations have encouraged young people to scrutinize anything presented as fact, challenge unconventional wisdom, and develop their own opinions about the conflicts and the tribunal's work. In these activities, outreach not only informs, but also listens and encourages dialogue. Ultimately, the shape and success of the tribunal's legacy in the fight against impunity and efforts to deal with the past will be determined by the local communities themselves. Because at the end of the day, it's up to the society if it takes a road towards reconciliation or a foster denial of crime.
Okay, here are some examples to support that the ICTY has balanced the retributive justice, restorative justice, and reconciliation. First is the UN Security Council resolution that established the ICTY expressed the conviction that it would contribute to the restoration and the maintenance of peace. And second, the Tribunal for the Former Yugoslavia is held in The Hague in Netherlands, holding the prosecution of perpetrators outside the state to prevent the view that victim justice will be employed. It also brings other two benefits. The first one is the creation of ICTY in part reflected that when the Balkans was ended, many war criminals were regarded as heroes in their ethnic group and would be unlikely to be brought to justice locally. And second, the international community also recognized that any trial would have to be held outside the region in a place where judges and witnesses will not face intimidation and which would be seen as impartial. Also, come to the statute of ICTY. It's the first ad hoc tribunal created after Nuremberg and in Turkey, contains a provision in Article 24, subsection 3, for restitution of property and proceeds applied by criminal conduct. The ICTY also has a device system, principally regulated by Rule 70 of our Rules of Procedure and Evidence. It permits confidential information shared at the investigative and pre-trial stage, but requiring disclosure if information is actually based on evidence at trial. Also, we got ending impunity and impartiality as well. Fortunately, the ad hoc tribunals cannot by a long way to be assumed
How to pronounce this
of
word?
this violation
Revenge.
of justice.
Revanchist.
We show
Revanchist.
Revenge.
Revenge. The idea is revenge.
Thus, covertly were followed by more conspicuous characters, but in the end, even ex-president Slobodan Milosevic was brought to The Hague and put out in the detention center in Slovenia. Come to the impartiality, in another respect as well, the ICTY may be seen to respect justice in the sense that when dry and fair on trial are not served, but Croats and Bosnians as well.
Now continue with another example. So the ICTY was explicitly established to bring an end to ongoing conflict in Balkans and facilitate reconciliation. So as Tilta explains, it was hoped that condemnation of ethnic persecution together with individual accountability would transcend identity politics and advance a shift towards a more liberal order. So assisting victims to move beyond their injury frequently is tied to the utility of trials in assisting in successful transition, since if victims do not receive justice to be done, they may resort to violence to settle their scores. So the first president of ICTY has echoed this call, stating that tribunal could squelch the desire for revenge among victims by rendering justice to them to avoid feeling of hatred and resentment seething below the surface to erupt and lead to renewed violence. So ICTY has, in a sense, prevented the victims from taking matters into their own hands. Some may feel that pushing justice would jeopardize peace, but then some argument states that some reconciliation-based argument for prosecution is that prosecution is a precondition for the society to heal. So our concluding remarks is that some scholars posit that healing is unrealistic and obscene notion for those who have died as well as for the survivors who feel as if they have died or lived among the dead. So scholars like Minov and Susan Dower argued that reconciliation is unreasonable for victims that have gone through such grief suffering. But then we feel that we should at least do something to help the society move on. So scholars of transitional justice make a distinction between two types of reconciliation. One is where we look at the society as a whole, to let the society to move on as a whole, and the other one is the unrealistic forgiveness between the victims and the perpetrators. So it is our view that the ICTY had at least achieved the first kind, which is to allow the society to move on as a whole through prosecution and also through the outreach program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Group number one. Group two will go straight on with you, and then we'll have a debate after that.
That's much.
Use your cell phone, make a video.
I would just read and then hold. Okay.
Do you need to load up anything, or have you? We do. You did, great. So there should be a stop down there. Okay.
So we've obviously doing about the criticisms of the ICTY.
So, David, do you think you could increase the font just a little bit?
I wonder whether we can do a zoom in.
Why do you have to make my phone go?
That little matter?
Yes.
That could be a major problem. Let's just see how it works.
Thank you.
Just pressing enter, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were doing the criticisms of the ICTY, and we've kind of each did it from a slightly different perspective. So, because it was about balance, so we were looking at retributions, restorative justice, reconciliation, human rights, and finished that with looking at the victims. So just a very, very brief introduction about the ICTY. It was obviously set up in 1993, and there's been 161 individuals indicted, but there's only secured 32 convictions. So that's obviously kind of an issue regarding reconciliation, because it's kind of a selective justice, and also kind of got the expense of the trial and the amount of time it's taken to achieve just 32 convictions. So do you want to talk about the retribution side?
Definition of the retribution is similar with punishment. However, the war crime could not overemphasize this theory, because the war crimes are always mass crime. The International Crime Court must impossible sentence everyone who have committed crime in the war. And if the court overemphasizes punishment, that man will trigger new war, and all revenges. For example, in Germany in the First World War, the international court should emphasize restore function. For example, in the source evidence. The Trust Commission was established, which helped the society
reestablish the trust. In the count of ICTY, maybe a little bit over-emphasis the punishment, because first the count was lack of the transparency for public, but more concentrate on the conviction. For example, according to the report, only a small group of citizens of this country know the process of the count. Secondly, because the sentence was lack of transparency, the sentence result cannot be recognized by both countries' people who become victim in the war. And thirdly, there are some significant difference with restorative justice. However, do not mean that retributive justice and restorative justice are mutually inclusive, incompleted for each other.
Thank you. And this is Naeem, just to say about something about restorative justice and RCTI, whether it was successful in translating the spirits of restorative justice throughout its judicial process. So first of all, I would like to bring forth the the provision that was in the resolution 827 of the Security Council that enunciated that the objectives of the tribunal are to deter future war crimes, to bring about justice, and to make a contribution to the restoration and maintenance of peace. So we see that there is an inclusion of the word restoration. Looks like a holistic approach that was supposed to be pursued by the ICTY, but unfortunately it was not. It was vague like my presentation slide. Okay, so now we can go for the definition of the notion of restorative justice. It is very challenging for defining this complex legal notion, but generally it's a process whereby parties with a stake in a specific offense resolve collectively how to deal with the aftermath of the offense and its implications for the future. However, a more comprehensive definition is provided by Gilbert and Settles in their work. That is to say that restorative justice views crime as a harm to individuals, their neighborhoods and surrounding community, and even the offender. Under this restorative justice perspective, justice is not based on punishment inflicted, but the extent to which harms have been repaired and future harms prevented. So we see that the ICTY was not designed or equipped to promote restorative justice, even though it is precisely restorative justice which is considered to be the most effective in promoting gradual reconciliation. And we have we have also studied that, and we came to know that a few NGOs like Victimology Society of Serbia, which have proven to be helpful in establishing restorative justice in that region. It is argued also that for reconciliation to occur, retributive justice alone is not sufficient, as you argued. Rather, it must be complemented with restorative justice process. So, in contrast, from a restorative justice perspective, crime is a violation of people and relationships. Justice, therefore, does not entail punishment only. Rather, it involves the victim, the offender, and the community in a search for solutions which promote repair, reconciliation, reassurance. Now, let's permeate through a few burning questions that we didn't find any answer, and in these questions, answer of this question predominantly determines whether ICTY was successful in translating the restorative justice spirits through its judicial process. The questions, the trial questions are: why only the former Yugoslavia? Why mainly the Serbs? And why not nature? These questions have significant implications, as I said, in terms of the ICTY's ability to contribute to the reconciliation process in ex-Yugoslavia. We can argue that ICTY has palpably failed in terms of its RG objectives as it was embodied in the text of the resolution that has created it by the United Nations. So the last point is that we have also analyzed few interview data and public opinion poll data, and that revealed that ICTI justice is seen by mainly in Serbians as a selective justice, on the grounds that the tribunal is only concerned with crimes committed on the territory of the former Yugoslavia and nowhere else. That is disproportionately targets Serbs more than any other ethnic groups in the former Yugoslavia, and that it turns a blind eye to the war crimes committed by Western powers. So there are a few catchy points. Number one, as those studies and public opinions reveal that about 70% of those are indicted by the ICTY have been the Serbs. The ICTY also aroused distrust among Croats, 52%, Serbians 59%, of whom felt that in an August 2000 and July 2003 poll that the Hague wants to criminalize the homeland war. And then, following the patterns, Bosniaks have resented the indictment of fellow Bosniaks and have considered the sentence imposed on Serbs and Croats unacceptably lenient in many cases. Indeed, in a survey conducted in 2002, only 51% of Bosnians expressed trust in the ICTY, compared with 21% of the citizens of Croatia, 8% Serbs, and only 4% residents of the Republic of Srpska. So in fine, we can say that the ICTY has not realized and has had no prospect of realizing its objective to promote deterrence, to bring restorative justice to the region, and to foster reconciliation between the members of the three nationality groups in that particular region. Thank you very much.
I've only just realised as we're standing here that I think some of our points overlap, so I can't just repeat similar things. Reconciliation is this sense of obviously acknowledgement of human forgiveness, but we do appreciate that the truth can also be an obstacle to reconciliation based because of the divisions can create. Mainly from the Clark article, the idea of whether reconciliation can be achieved is whether is justice being done, does it establish the truth about the crimes, and does it achieve neutralisation of guilt? So just under each heading, the trials didn't actually take place in Yugoslavia, so there's a sense of remoteness and detachment. And I also understand that there was a lot of sort of reliance on foreign expertise instead of sort of involving more of people from that area in the process. And so obviously people in the area will not be invested in the trials. Significance of the trials, so only 6% of respondents consider themselves to be informed about the ICTY, 72% felt that they were not well informed. So when important convictions are achieved, then if people, it's not going to achieve reconciliation if people in the region aren't actually appreciating the significance of those convictions. Establishing the truth about the crimes does not effectively address the suffering of Serbs during the war, and there's a sense of distorted, biased truth. 30% of purpose was to justify NATO aggression, 32% felt it was for the purpose of making Serbia guilty for aggression during the war, and by individualising guilt. Establishing individual guilt does not address collective guilt, neither so this kind of sense of selective guilt. Widely the former Yugoslavia, so there's been many, since kind of the Nuremberg trial, there's been many other conflicts. So why was this particular conflict picked upon? Why mainly Serbs, so this sense of victors justice which we've kind of already talked about. And why not NATO, so why hasn't there been a focus on the other countries that were involved in the conflict?
So, we also thought that it would be important to cover the opinions of the victims when considering funds of justice and reconciliation, since justice can help bring around reparations and accountability for the pain of the most affected communities. So one way in which justice can be enforced is through the use of reparations. Under the prevailing national law of each country, victims have the right to file a claim for reparations in the criminal proceedings. In practice, however, the International Organisation of Migration found that victims in all countries face a multitude of barriers to obtain redress through the courts. Now, these can include the lack of financial means to support and lawyers' fees, the psychological and physical burdens that the trials pose on victims, the unavailability of sufficient evidence, and a continued lack of awareness amongst victims about their rights. And as a result, the judicial route has not been able to offer effective access to reparations for the vast majority of victims of international crimes in the former Yugoslavia. The continued absence of the state-led approach to victims' reparations has caused a number of NGOs and victims' associations to step up and file or support reparations cases when multiple cases have been brought before the national courts in the region, the European Court of Human Rights, and the United Nations Committee on Human Rights. The position of the ICTY is to bring criminals to justice and enforce justice, and so this must be as fair as possible as to satisfy the victims and the need for retribution. But the issue here is that public opinion of the ICTY among the people most affected has not been favourable towards the ICTY and its actions. And this has been mainly within the Serbian population who most strongly criticise the justice that's been dealt. Based on interview data and public opinion poll, it's argued that the main criticism is that the justice which has been administered has been selective. The ICTY's pursuit of justice has left a divide amongst the victims. For example, the acquittal of the Croat generals Ante Gotovina and Mladen Marković left a bitter taste in the mouths of many victims, while others celebrated. The ICTY ruled that there was no joint criminal enterprise to drive the Serbian minority out of the country during the operation. So for the Croatians, this verdict was not just an acquittal of national heroes, it was also an international acknowledgement that what had happened was just. On the other hand, the decision was seen as a humiliation of the Serbian people, with the Serbian president suggesting that the decision was merely political and would be a source to open up old wounds. It suggested that the Hague Justice has served to add fuel to the fire of the Serbians' perception of themselves as victims. Thacker said that the failure to prosecute with matching zeal mass crimes committed against Serbs by the historical Balkan enemies, including acts of reverse ethnic cleansing by Kosovars since the 1990 war, and under protective measures of NATO troops, feeds a sense of victimhood amongst the Serbians. If Milicevic, why not Franjo Trudman? There is a sense of public pressure from either side to prosecute those involved, the tragedies of the war, but there must be a balance maintained. The Clark article makes an interesting point by mentioning the idea that if the tribunal is removed from the local population, this has an effect on the understanding of legal proceedings by the local people. Gordy maintains that the ICTY has not really invested enough energy to explain its goals and procedures and establish the legitimacy to the people in the countries where it has oversight. According to the Institute for War and Peace Reporting, any reconciliation in the former Yugoslavia is difficult because of the existence of an intense resistance by many in the region to the reality that their own ethnic kin committed atrocities. Afterman also acknowledges that even in the ICTY can establish a factual record of what happened, it cannot contribute to national reconciliation if this record is not recognised and internalised by the peoples of the former Yugoslavia. A survey funded by the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Michigan, Serbia, and coordinated by the Belgrade Center for Human Rights, showed that the majority of citizens have a negative view of the tribunal and minimal knowledge of cases, both before the ICTY and the national courts. While it's not disputed that there is a correlation, the study is not a definite evaluation, and more information is needed before an official finding is due to the changing nature of the trials and the views of the people. Finally, Parmentier and Weitkamp note in their article that the international community's emphasis on criminal prosecution and conviction is little, if any, attention has been paid to the views and expectations of the local population, despite the information they may hold regarding their opinions on the crimes of the past, how they should be dealt with, how to reconstruct the future, and their opinions on persecutions and truth commissions.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, two excellent presentations dealing with some difficult issues. What do people think? Yeah. So, has the ICTY effectively balanced reconciliation, restorative justice, and retribution? What do people think? Those people that didn't present, what were their reactions to how the different groups presented, or the arguments that different groups discussed?
While the first group did put across some points, and I'm leaning more towards agreeing with the second group and saying that they haven't done a very good job of balancing the three. Just to state a few things, the fact that it still appears that victor's justice is not just a notion, but also in practice when you look at it, and only crimes that were committed by the Serbs are being looked into and not the other crimes. So that kind of brings about an imbalance in the kind of justice that there is. And secondly, the fact that the ICTY is not within former Yugoslavia brings about a sense of detachment from what it is and people's understanding of it. So I don't think it effectively addresses all three issues.
Okay, so we've got some issues to deal with regarding whether it was sufficiently relevant and proximate to the victims not being based within the former Yugoslavia. We've got some issues of whether the perpetrators across the different ethnicities were representative of the crimes that actually took place. Yeah, some good points there. What do people think?
From the theoretical perspective, I think the ICTY was created in order to accomplish retributive justice, but not restorative justice or reconciliation. Like, I believe it was based in the idea of prosecution and not in the idea of healing the society. And as the second group said, I think it was Mandana, it is not enough to have a factual truth, because from the reading we can see that we have at least 4 kind of truths that are needed in order to actually achieve the heal of the society. So I think that ICTY can contribute only by creating this kind of factual truth, but also it should have another kind of role with the society. As Inter said, something like they were involving people from high school and universities in order to develop their own beliefs to this. But they have to actually get involved with the victims, as Viva said, because they are so far away from them. You can't really feel like justice is being done in the territory, but it's being done far away from the actual scene of crime. So I think it's a lot to do for the ICTY. Not only for the ICTY, probably also for the security council to intervene in this sense, in order to create another kind of ideology for the society.
Good points, Amanda. Brian.
I just wanted to respond to both points in relation to what our group had done. So our argument for location of the ICTY court in The Hague, and not in the former Yugoslavia, was that we discovered that so a lot of the judicial functions in the former Yugoslavia had been damaged during the war. And also one of the biggest arguments for locating the court in The Hague in Spain was that the perception that victor's justice would be employed was going to be removed. And obviously, if there's the perception of victor's justice being removed, then that is a good start when you want to achieve restorative justice and reconciliation. And then also just the point that Viva had made in relation to the trial of Serbs. Well, one of the arguments we also found was that the docket of the ICTY includes cases of Croats against violence against Muslims, and then also Muslim violence against Serbs, and Croat violence against the Serbs. So it was trying to see sort of a sense of balance there, such that if reconciliation was sought, then there was a sort of across the board representation in the docket of the ICTY.
Okay, I can see Viva wanting to come back on your rejoinder.
So just on that point, the fact that it's been regionalized and the fact that you're only targeting a few communities, like Brian mentioned during the trial, that itself kind of defeats the purpose of saying everybody is going to be punished for crimes irrespective of where they come from. The Western nations are still not being persecuted. And then talking about moving away from Yugoslavia and placing it elsewhere, for the trials to happen, that just goes on to show that just kind of portrays a negative image of a judicial system or a system that is in existence in the particular place, saying that we do not trust the society enough to build its own justice and a judicial system, or that they're not capable of handling their own matters, thus we'd rather have foreign expertise and have them decide our matters because clearly we're not capable. So I think it kind of backtracks, at least reconciliation and trying to rebuild a society and trust within the society.
So would you have argued for the ICTY being based in Sarajevo or Belgrade or Zagreb, or do you think that would be better for reconciliation or better for retribution or restoration, or?
I think it would be better for all three, considering that a society goes through something like this and the fact that it's attempting to make a change. Participation of victims and participation of the population becomes very important. So I think that would have been done better if it was placed in one of these places.
Do you know why the place is made?
Going from their presentation, I suppose, to avoid the accusation that they move a step closer and to providing proper justice, I suppose. But
Okay.
other than that, I have no idea.
Any comments on this debate that's going on? It's a really interesting debate whether the ICTY should have been cited in The Hague or whether it should have been in one of the nations of the former Yugoslavia, and what that might have done to the perception of justice, whether that's restorative justice or retributive justice or otherwise. Madonna?
I think if it remained within one of the newly formed states of the former Yugoslavia, it would seriously help with the restoration and reconciliation of these states and of the issues that are underlying, because it would say that it would just be an overall notion that they can be trusted with trying to find justice for what's happened themselves, and it wouldn't, because I feel that in a slight way by moving it to The Hague, they're being undermined, their own abilities to find justice for their people and to come together to say it's not just one particular group, we're all at fault, everyone has suffered. All of that is being undermined by having it in The Hague. So if it had been in one of the new states, it would have been a blank slate which they could have worked from.
Okay.
I do agree with Madonna, but I also think, playing devil's advocate, what state do you hold it in? Like,
how do you choose?
How do you choose? And I think that could also be a huge issue in reconciliation and in vintage justice, because if you choose to hold it in a single, like in a certain state, then other states could go, well, how is that going to affect their criminals being prosecuted, or that will the people that have caused atrocities on our side, will they be punished unfairly, comparatively? And so I do see some point of moving it to The Hague, because that is a neutral ground. Plus, if you consider what The Hague is meant to stand for, the entirety of The Hague is to bring war criminals to justice, and so moving it to a neutral ground might also be beneficial. I don't think it has been in this case.
So Brian and then Vivian.
Reference can also be made when you look at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, which was based in Arusha, Tanzania, and not in Rwanda, where the actual atrocities occurred. And now when the tribunal was being set up, similar arguments that are being made today against setting it outside of Rwanda were projected. And even the government of Rwanda voted against the Security Council resolution, saying that if it's located outside of Rwanda, there's not going to be any reconciliation that will happen in Rwanda. But that being said, it can also be argued that from the tribunal and into now in Rwanda, there has been significant milestones with reconciliation that have been seen in Rwanda. So maybe perhaps, in the sense that it was held outside of Rwanda and we've seen reconciliation, we shouldn't be too quick to assume that holding the ICTY outside of the territory and having it in Hague is sort of going to render any reconciliation knowledge.
Okay. Quick one.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on from this issue of location.
So if I'm not wrong, the ICTY came before the ICTR and way before The Hague became a symbol of where where war crimes were tried and anything of that sort before the ICC was established in
It was the
2000.
ICJ before, the International Court of Justice and the Peace Palaces, but that was one well before.
Yeah, but that didn't look to punish individual acts of crime. So talking about war criminals being punished and not states as a whole, like trying to pin individual liability started with the ICTY, if I can say so. So couple of points. I think the fact that it was moved to The Hague kind of was a negative, and the fact that it also goes on to show that you need an international community to be involved for restoration in a particular region, and it completely goes not exactly against sovereignty, but just saying that these sovereign states are not capable of deciding for themselves the kind of procedure they want to have in place, and the international community somehow has a say in what needs to go on.
Does anyone want to put a counter-argument to the argument that it was just made? What counter-arguments might be? It's an interesting point. It's a strong point. But there is a counter-argument. It's what the UN was saying to the Cambodian government about having a tribunal outside Cambodia. Anyone know? We're talking about the capacity of the judiciary and the national judiciary to effectively and fairly and independently try a range of suspects that come before it. If the capacity of that judiciary is so degraded or so corrupted or affected by the internecine strife between different ethnicities, you may find that the justice you end up with, having cited it within a particular country, becomes very partial. And that's when you have issues of legitimacy. And as we know, legitimacy is one of the real touchstones for it being accepted by the population. I'm not suggesting that, as we've seen, and quite rightly the evidence has come out, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that the ICTY is considered legitimate by a large number of the stakeholders within former Yugoslavia. And the comment about the Serbs seeing it as victims' justice is a well-made one. But there are problems with citing a tribunal within the jurisdiction if the domestic judiciary is troubled. I want to move on from that and just talk a little bit about the point I made at the bottom, or the comment at the bottom about outreach. Now, outreach was something that was talked about by the first group. Let's just talk a bit about what outreach is. Can anyone give me a definition, rough or otherwise, of what outreach is there to do? Or hazard a guess. What do you think outreach is there for? What does the tribunal try to do when it is performing outreach activities? Cal?
It's basically reaching out to the community.
To do what? It is, but to do what?
To be involved.
To be involved. Yeah. To be involved, to have a stake. Anything else?
We try to inform by new past. So
Exactly.
bridge that gap.
Yeah. So you're there to communicate what the tribunal is there to do, but to inform the population about what the tribunal is doing. Have any other comments?
I was going to say it's probably for looking legitimacy in the society
Okay.
for the ICTY.
And how would outreach improve the legitimacy of the tribunal, do you think?
By making the individuals taking their own point of view and developing like agreements between them in order for them to understand what kind of role is everyone playing in this conflict in order like to set a ground by the society and by the ICTY, and after that start to reveal their relationships.
Okay, good. Legitimacy, yeah.
Just to add to Fernanda's point, I think it creates legitimacy by, like, not, I don't want to say normalizing, that's the word, but like basically bringing everything the court is doing down to a level where, you know, the average individual can understand it, and through understanding it, people are actually able to
ensure that they have an ability to make an informed decision on the legitimacy or otherwise. Hopefully, no, the public will view it as legitimate. Is it D? No.
Yes.
Did you want to raise something as well?
Oh, I was just going to say that the court is no longer sort of an abstract construct like somewhere in the country brings it down to more of a ground level where not everyone understands the words, but it's just at least someone knows there is a court that is trying to keep justice.
So it's making it tangible, making the justice that the court is hoping to achieve tangible for the citizens who are affected by it. And that is very much more difficult to bring about if the tribunal is hundreds of miles away in a different country, a country to which a minute fraction of the population affected will ever be able to go and visit, let alone go and see some of the trials. And that was one of the major criticisms of the ICTY, that it was too difficult for the outreach section, such that it was at the beginning and developed into something more later on, to be able to communicate. A couple of points on outreach as well. Outreach has become much more important to the later tribunals and as the ICTY has come about. When the ICTY first started, outreach was not particularly an important feature. Not that people didn't think about it, the tribunal architects didn't think about it, but they didn't really go as far as the tribunal staff are now going, and as far as, say, the Special Court for Sierra Leone went, or the Cambodia Tribunal went. Because each successive iteration of international tribunals have attempted, and I use that word advisedly, attempted to learn from the mistakes of their earlier iterations. And it's generally perceived that the ICTY's outreach in the very early days was insufficient. And that contributed to the lack of legitimacy and the sense from Serbs particularly that they were being demonised by the tribunal. Nowadays, I suppose the tribunal that put outreach front and centre of the mandate was the Special Court for Sierra Leone. So if you Google outreach, if you Google Scholar outreach in international tribunals, you will generally come up with the Special Court for Sierra Leone's model outreach program. And they are seen to have a much stronger concept of taking the tribunal into the country. So they would, in large parts of Sierra Leone, people don't read or write, so they would have performances through theatre, they would have comic strips to try to get people to understand what was going on, and they had a lot of engagement with the local communities. So outreach is something, sorry Fernando, you wanted to say?
No, but it's nothing related to outreach. I was thinking like, probably the ICTY shouldn't be a tribunal, but should be instead like a truth commission. Because I think that the Security Council is established that in a justice view, but very, very Western. Like what we understand for justice in looking for prosecution, but probably what the society needed was only a truth commission in order like to forgive each other and, as we see from the reading, rehumanizing the other, and after that kind of start to create another kind of view from the society and also review the relationship between the different cultures.
So ICTY should be a TRC discuss, should be the essay we'll be setting you for the coursework. No, it's not. But it's a very interesting point, and there has been a discussion, there have been discussions about whether there should have been truth commissions within the respective states, or even across an international truth commission. And they've never really got off the ground. For reasons we're going to look into next week. We're actually going to be focusing specifically on the Sierra Leone Truth and Reconciliation Commission next week, but we can widen the debates to the Balkans. And this concept of Western justice or Westernized justice, it doesn't just apply to retributive justice, it can also apply to truth commissions. And as we'll be discussing next week, there are certain cultures in which it is actually not the done thing to confess, to talk about what you've done in the past. It's very much a sort of model that we might come across, come out from a Christian Freudian perspective, we're going to tell everybody all our sins, all the things that are going on, and be cleansed through it. Well, some societies have done exactly the opposite. They've been able to continue because they've kept their hurt and their upset to themselves. They dwell on it too much, they can't move on. So, all very well to mention Western justice, but also broaden that thinking to whether that also encompasses reconciliation and also other forms of justice. One last thing I'll say before we have a 2-minute stretch of our legs is let's not forget as well when the ICTY was developed. So it came at a particular point in the development of international criminal law where there had been a hiatus of however many years, 50 years since the Nuremberg Tribunal. And it came at a time when the Cold War had ended. There was really only America as the major superpower in the world. There were concepts of how these big atrocities should be dealt with. And they came up with the ICTY. Not a perfect institution by any means we've seen today. Perhaps if the ICTY were being constructed today, being theorised today, it would be done in a very different way, knowing what we've learned from these several decades of work in The Hague, and knowing what other tribunals have learned, either Cambodia, Sierra Leone, Rwanda, and other places. Obviously now we have the ICC, so that is meant to capture all of the conflicts, but we know there are other tribunals being set up right now. In the Central African Republic, there's a tribunal being set up there to deal with the violence there, and that's outside the jurisdiction, deliberately so, of the ICC. But yes, we are in a very different phase now in transitional justice as far as retributive justice is concerned, and using mechanisms of retribution to lead into restorative justice and reconciliation. Okay, let's leave it there for a couple of minutes. We'll come back and make it 6 minutes past. Let's come back at 10 past.
The 2 minutes for bachelor rights for self-petitions. I think that's why but in Bosnia, it's next door neighbours, the 2 close to each other. Because the 2 close, the 2 involved with each other. It's like every time you're walking down the road, you see that neighbour right down there.
Interesting.
2 points. One, I don't really understand what you mean, Calvin, to say that Brighton and South Africa are so distant. Yes, I suppose they're different communities, but I mean, you're not distant at all. Everybody's mixed in with one another. So I disagree slightly on that point, but I do also agree with you in the sense that I don't think healing work turned out. I'd argue that it hasn't really worked in South Africa either. For the sole fact that I think when you have atrocities of whatever caliber, it's remembered and it's spoken about and it's talked about for generations. It's not something that is simply forgotten. And I don't think you can heal without forgiveness, and forgiveness is not often given. Even with, in the case of South Africa, you have amnesty, but that doesn't mean that people actually forgave people. It just meant you found the truth and then the person got off scot-free, basically. And so I don't think there is often that sense of forgiveness. And without forgiveness, I don't think you move on. So I don't see how, I don't think healing, at least in the sense that we're doing it currently, actually works.
Moving away from country-specific or an incident-specific impact, going back to the reading where in the article by Fletcher, it talks about episodic violence that occurs at random and affects people at a neighborhood level. So even when there's violence which is centrally planned and the collaboration of military and paramilitary units which produce acts of violence and cruelty which not only terrorize a community but also destroy the basis of a community life when one community is pitched against another and neighbors fighting each other and these events are occurring at random. That entire idea of social security and the concept of a community completely breaks down. So there's an irretrievable breakdown of a social structure as it existed when there is a mass violence.
Exactly. This is what we're getting at when we're talking about the nature of mass violence as occurred in the situations that we're looking at throughout this course. So the violence is not just of an individual nature. It's not just a single murder or a collection of single murders perpetrated at random. It's a systematized impact, or the impact rather, of systematized violence on the fabric of a community. Can you imagine what it must be like to be in a situation in which, although you haven't personally been affected, your neighbour has, your relatives have, in the streets around the corner, you can no longer go shopping, buy things from the market because the market stallholders have been terrorised. It has an impact on your whole social fabric. That's the key aspects of mass violence. The flip side to that is trying to understand why people act in such a brutal senseless fashion. Did anyone come across the readings, in the readings, any justification or explanation of why people get involved in this? Fernanda?
There are quite a few factors that I consider for these kind of behaviors in people. And especially when they're acting in a group, they change their view of the actual reality. And one of the factors is like the diffusion of the responsibility. Like you kind of split the responsibility between all of the individuals. Whereas in a criminal, like in a single murder, it's only all the responsibility is on you. But if you're acting in a group, you feel like supported by them. Also, the power of authority, like being in a group makes you feel powerful compared to being alone. The third one is the humanization of others. So you don't consider the other as a human anymore, but like as an object, something that you can actually enjoy without getting any punishment for it. The presence of allies, people from other places, people that do not really belong to that society, but they are involved in that, you kind of feel support from everywhere else. And the last one is the condition of anonymity. So as you are in a group, the authority is not going to really know, or you presume that the authority is not going to really know who did it or why did you did it, so you can just like go away without any punishment.
Excellent. I'm glad you mentioned all of those factors, Fernando. So we're looking at the anonymisation of individuals that participate in mass violence, the fact that you're participating in this violence with dozens or hundreds or perhaps thousands of allies. You also feel a sense of empowerment at the same time as you feel this lack of responsibility or diffusion of responsibility when you're acting in a group. And studies have been done on crowds, on individuals who are operating under a perceived or real condition of authority. There's that famous Milgram experiment. Did anyone ever read that in the reading? So in the States, where people were effectively told by an authority figure to inflict an electric shock on the victims. It was simulated, they weren't actually shocking the victims, but they nevertheless kept dialing up the severity of the electrocution, the supposed electrocution, totally outwith what they would normally do, totally apart from their normal moral code. They haven't selected psychopaths to conduct this experiment. These were ordinary people off the street. So it's often asked, so how would we behave in others' shoes? If we were in the middle of the Rwandan genocide, and if we were a Hutu, would we resist? Would we be able to resist getting caught up in what was happening in Rwanda? Would we have behaved as, pick a figure from history, or Oskar Schindler in the Holocaust, and attempted to save the Jews in the factory that he was owning? Now, when we think about the nature of mass violence and the impact that it has on social structures, it's important to consider how this should be reflected in terms of punishment, how it should be reflected in terms of justice. And we now consider this concept of social repair and whether trials can ever conduct social repair, heal the fabric of society, repair the fabric of society after this mass violence has degraded the economic, the social and cultural factors. What are the arguments for suggesting that trials can repair this society? We'll throw a few things out there. Lots of things.
That trials seek to promote and publicise the street and officially recognise wrongdoing on at least some people. That was one of the arguments.
Good. So, having in the fog of war the clarity of the truth that is judicially recognised and tested in the courtroom, but also to reflect society's opprobrium that moral norms have been violated, to stand as a marker. This is what happens when people break the rules. They will be arrested, put on trial, and if there is no one convicted and punished. Any other reasons that trials may repair a society damaged by violence?
To remove bad blood. So you have certain individuals that are in society that need taken out of society, need to be seen to be taken out of society.
So you're basically quarantining all of the people, imprisoning the people.
Well, we're not talking about the penology of it, what happens to them, but, you know, if there's been an internal conflict,
yeah,
you can't just say, well, you know, let's just like forget everything and, you know, have an amnesty. You know, it's, you're basically taking certain individuals that will continue to foment dissent and internal terrorism and just say, well, lay it off this time, don't do it again.
Okay.
I think that's happened in Syria.
Fernanda, the Viva,
In this order of ideas, following the argument, one of the advantages of trials for reading is like they look to establish that justice is done, and so it kind of helps the society to heal everything that they are feeling after that, and also they help to establish the truth about crimes committed. But this is a factual truth, but well, this is a kind of counter-argument about that. And the last one is that it kind of individualizes the guilt of the crimes that have been committed. So not the collective anymore, but also individuals that you can actually punish.
So why is it important to have guilt individualized in these trials?
Because after that, society does not feel like the guilt is for everyone in that context. Like, it's not for everyone in the case of the ICTY, it would be like, it's not for all the Serbs or all the Bosnians, but like individuals that actually committed the crimes. So you don't have to hate everyone. There are specific people that you have to, well, not have to, you kind of, I don't know, apply the catharsis against them.
Okay, good points. What would be the arguments against that individualization of punishments? What negative consequences might arise as a result of punishing a handful of the top leaders?
Trials, trial 2.
I was thinking more of the people that weren't punished or prosecuted.
There's in the sense that if you only prosecute a few, that you're not fully giving any kind of justice to victims. So, when there have been mass atrocities, as you said, everybody's affected, and therefore, by individualising guilt, you're not allowing society to. I don't think you're fully allowing society to heal, because you're kind of going, well, I know your neighbour, for your brother, but this person's worse than this guy. So we're not going to prosecute him, but we're going to prosecute this person. But that doesn't leave any sense of justice to the person whose brother's been killed, and it doesn't mean that a society can move on fully from it.
Okay, good. Viva?
I think the point about individualizing guilt, what goes against it is that only a handful of people are at the end of the day held liable for these actions, while command responsibility and JCE and everything points to some people being punished, it's still not, in the sense of retributive justice, when you're talking about the concept of retributive justice, it's said that a society feels at ease when they've been punished for, in a similar way, for a crime that they've committed. So while these people have committed, and it's a good thing, not everyone who has committed these crimes have been punished in similar ways. Thus, individualization of that guilt kind of takes away from it. The fact that not a community or not a bunch of perpetrators are punished, but just like an individual is punished. And moving back to how trials can contribute in societal repair, going by the reading, it helps discover and publicize the truth of past atrocities, helps punish perpetrators, helps respond to the needs of victims, helps promote the rule of law in emerging democracies, and helps promote reconciliation.
Good. Excellent. I'm going to read a quote from Janine Clark's article on this specific issue of individualization of guilt. And one of the drawbacks of it, and it goes like this. So if only a small number of people are prosecuted, the broader extent of guilt that exists within a society remains unknown. The result may be that entire groups view each other as collectively guilty. It is precisely such thinking that allows mass atrocities to occur in the first place. So just reflecting on that quote from Clark, you could almost say, well, if you prosecute everybody, or if you say that everybody is guilty, you're using the prohibited reasoning, guilt by association. If everyone's let's punish everybody. But if you only prosecute the senior leaders, you are also potentially risking absolving those that might have participated, might actually have wielded the machete or pulled the trigger on the AK-47, absolving them of any guilt whatsoever. And if, as Carol might say, so if my uncle was killed by the guy across the road, and the guy across the road happens to be a foot soldier, so will never end up in prison, what's the reaction to that? Is it not going to be, well, they've all done it, they're all guilty, we're going to demonise that whole ethnic group? So these are really challenging areas for transitional justice scholars to think about. And also, an awful lot is expected of tribunals, whether you're selectively picking the senior leaders known as most responsible, or whether it's a broader transitional justice, more domestic mechanism like the Gacaca process in Rwanda. Let's think about this idea of trials and what they can achieve, and whether too much is expected of them. Do we think too much is expected of tribunals or criminal trials, or is it reasonable that their founding documents should proclaim grandly solving issues of reconciliation, bringing peace in the region, etc.? What do you think?
I think that kind of a problem with them is that people who want the trials before they come about kind of have the assumption, that we always talk about the presumption of guilt, and everyone just assumes that, oh, well, this person's going to stand trial and they're going to be found guilty and then they're going to be put in prison. But the reality of trials is that doesn't happen. And I think that that's one of the massive problems with trials, and why they always feel like a letdown, because the victims don't want, that fair trial. They just want the person who killed someone in their family to be put in prison. And I think that's just something that means that communities will never really be able to accept them and fully appreciate them, because it's not exactly what they want.
Yeah, interesting. Good points.
I agree with Ruth. I think, just to build on a little further on that, there are way too many stakeholders involved when it comes to trials. There's the international community. Are you looking to please the international community? Are you trying to hold the perpetrators responsible? Are you looking at it from the point of victims? Are you looking at it from the point of emerging governments? So there's so much to balance out that there's obviously an unrealistic pressure on trials, and they look to deliver from all angles, but they do falter at many levels and do not ideally, essentially, satisfy all stakeholders present, but they do look to somehow bridge the gap somewhere.
Why do you think it is these founding statutes of the tribunals promise so much? why do they, if you read all of the preambles and the introductions, whether it's the Nuremberg Tribunal, whether it's the ICC or the ICTY, why do they say to promote healing and restoration of communities, to bring peace and justice to the region? Why are they saying such grand statements of grand objectives?
A cynical answer.
Tell me how you want to put it.
It's basically power grabs, like, we'll do everything for you, give us all the money. I mean, I've seen that with, they're doing this with the ICC next door, but it's the same people in the structure who are in Romania, so promising everyone everything. Don't do anything in the work anyway. But gradually the agreement gets broader and broader and broader, and it still comes anything, but it still costs millions of millions.
Okay, so cynically, can you say it's just basically a ruse to get the money in? We can promise, yeah, we'll build you this fantastic palace of justice in the sky, give us some money, and we'll put your name on it.
Just
This can help subtitle.
main support and only getting received by saying you're going to do everything to solve certain problems. But at the same time, I mean, aim high, right?
It's easier. Don't need
Why
to
not?
note.
Is it necessarily cynical to aim for an idea?
That's the kind of things about it. You should aim high, you should aim to
But it's not
try and achieve the most that you can possibly achieve from the trial or the tribunal. But at the same time, it's not realistic. And stating things like that, it seems merely a PR thing.
And who are you trying to convince, or who
The international the international community at large, people who sort of want to see justice done and want to see this justice done.
where do you factor in outreach
make
to
a
the
note.
ordinary person on the ground who's affected by this?
I mean, you could argue that even that's a similar PR thing.
Make the note, because I think the note may be useful.
The court is doing. Whereas the court may be only like selectively prosecuting people, or even that could be a gender.
Okay, good point.
Maybe we together because very time waste.
I think when you ask like the question of why you have such big mandate, I mean, what's the alternative? I mean, what are you meant to say to a country which has been in conflict other than we're going to create justice? If you sit there and go, well, let's be frank, nothing's going to happen because we can't do anything. I don't think the conflict
Very
is going
different.
you know, everybody in the conflict is going to go, oh, we accept that. We won't go back to the fight. We're just going to go back to the conflict. So I mean, if anybody does have an alternative, I would love to hear it, because I can't think of one. I don't know what else you could say to the community. It has to just be, we are going to create justice and peace and reconciliation and all that. Because the
Should be
alternative
editor, yes.
Does anyone have an alternative?
I don't have an alternative, but what I'm saying is, though it might not deliver on all fronts, it does intend to do all of these things. Because at the end of the day, they might not have the means to achieve it, but this is the end goal that they're looking to achieve.
When we come back now to Calvin about money, I'll tell you a little quick anecdote. So it was 2004, and I was prosecuting in Kosovo, and I was asked by my boss to go to an outreach event in Sarajevo that the deputy prosecutor of the ICTY, Graham Blewett, was putting on, region by region. He was going to all of the capitals.
Lewis was in charge of the money.
Yes. He's not in charge of money, no. So Graham Blewett was there as the ICTY deputy prosecutor, explaining to the various stakeholders in the region what they were doing when it came to accepting plea agreements. And the longer the ICTY process went on, the more they realised they weren't going to complete their mandate in time, and the more money it was going to cost them. So that in a cost-saving exercise, they were trying to accept, or they were accepting plea agreements. So in exchange for a guilty plea, you would have a lesser sentence. Something that is very common, obviously, in the English criminal justice system. You would get credit for your guilty plea. But what he did, as well as inviting myself and the prosecutors from Kosovo and various regions, he also invited the mothers from Srebrenica, so the widows and the mothers of the slain men, women and children in Srebrenica to this event. And whilst he was explaining this process of, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to explain to you why we're putting together these plea agreements. It's going to save money, we're going to finish in time, we're going to ensure that everyone is prosecuted. He was completely shouted down by these traumatised, highly charged, understandably emotional widows and mothers from Srebrenica. And it was a classic failure of not knowing who your audience is and not understanding what impact your words would be having on people whose lives were affected by it. So I think, just to summarise that anecdote, I think the problem that some people who work in jurisdictions like The Hague have is that they are too distant from the affected communities. And whilst they can conceive of their strategy for prosecution and their completion strategy, they can't necessarily always conceive of how they are affecting in real life, real lives. And I think it's important for us scholars and students of transitional justice to realise we're talking about ordinary people's lives that have been transformed by extraordinary events, and to try and conceive of the impact that this has had on them is almost beyond what we can contemplate. So, yeah, outreach, not really, in fact, doing the reverse of what it was meant to do, angering, rubbing salt into the wounds. Okay, let's move on and think a little bit more detail, about restorative justice. So, what is restorative justice? We had a definition of it, I think, from the second group. Who would like to summarise restorative justice for us again? Let's leave the second group out of this because they've already done this. What's it all about? What's the essence of restorative justice? What is being restored?
It's just a theory of justice that emphasizes on repairing the harm caused by criminal behavior and restoring the relations that existed prior to the act that was that harm.
Good. The relations between who?
So the relationships between, it could be either the two parties that were involved in the acts that resulted in the commission of atrocities, or in certain cases the relations between states could be as well. But primarily groups that were involved into the acts that committed those atrocities.
Okay, good. Yeah, Fernanda?
I cannot identify restorative justice in two essential branches. The first one is related to the crime, as understanding a relationship with it will involve the individual who suffers, like the victim, the offender, the neighborhood, and also the surrounding community in order to actually restore the relationship between them. The second branch would be the promotion of communication between, again, victim, the offender, the community, and the government. The third part would be that restorative justice strives to promote peace and order for the community, vindication for the victim, and recompense or kind of retribution for the offender. So it's like a very complex process, but also like it covers everyone who's actually participated in the crime.
Good. So both of you mentioned the relations between the perpetrator and the victim, and you expanded that a little, Fernanda, and said the harm to the community. The key aspect for restorative justice when it comes to mass atrocity, when it comes to the violence for which countries are trying to resolve, is the impact on the community. It's the way the community might better come forward. Sorry, so
It's snowing.
okay.
Snowing.
So what do you think about that? What are your thoughts about having understood the definition of restorative justice? Is that something that is...
The international students haven't seen snow.
I mean, this is your first time seeing snow? Only a few minutes to go.
No concentrate this class.
So what do you think about that? What do you think about the idea of restoring relationships between individuals and communities? Sound possible? Sound likely? Sound good? Sound unlikely?
So, like, to the innocent communities, or sort of what communities that have perpetrators mixed.
Community, the whole community.
So those that haven't been arrested for children.
Not just the perpetrators, but the victims as well. As a concept.
I grew up in an area where there was conflict. You know, that was 40 years ago, or 50 now, it was 40 years ago. It was still hot. And even today, if someone said, bang, you know, there's a group, we're going to arms. It's such a thing that's programmed into certain aspects. People are like, I'll tell you, it was basically the IRA versus the British. And someone said, you know, we found an IRS, so let's go and get them now. I'll be like, let's go. It's not something that you think consciously, it's something that's programmed into you from an early age. So, I mean, if the question's rehumanising the other, it's not going to happen unless you have a certain level of being, you have a certain level of consciousness. Now, I'm an adult, I'm a lawyer, I can think objectively about it, but I've got virtually 90% of my friends don't have that level of thinking.
So how do you raise that consciousness?
How do I do it? How do I work on it?
Or how does one raise it? How do you work on it?
Well, it's basically, it's the root of it is ignorance. So, you know, you research, you look for it, you know, you come to terms with an understanding of what the actual conflict is. But, you know what, I don't have any friends that are lawyers who have got to that level of degree. I don't have many friends that have even got a degree. They're all at a certain street level. They will never even conceive of thinking about that. It's just an impulse. They will respond to that impulse.
Anything you wanted to come?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely something to that. And talk about trials, even with most individual guilt or even collective guilt, there's still something that doesn't get addressed. Things, sort of social structures, things like racism and nationalism, and how they permeate society. They just go completely sort of unaddressed in trials, even if they're collective. When we're talking about how individuals think or feel or act towards others, there's still something underlying that isn't addressed in the trial, something social, something bigger.
So Cal's point was that it's all about education. You need to educate people to be aware that there are different ways of being.
I grew up in Latvia, through Soviet time, and there was new issue about independence. And that was very different from having a conflict, but it's still that sort of transition period. And we, as a country, struggle with Russian integration. It just doesn't happen. We have Russian speaking schools, we have, you have to speak Russian in your own country to communicate with the majority of the population. So I think in certain situations, integration and I would say outreach and trying to kind of merge the two very polarized communities into one, that would probably help with the social justice.
Okay. So Fernanda and then Jessica, do you want to go? Okay. Fernanda's giving you the floor.
I do agree with the, but I also agree with Cal and Aiden, because the thing is, I think I can only speak from a very privileged view. Like when I grew up in South Africa, I was in a white community, but we're 23 years on from when I was freedom, and there's still very distinct communities. There's been zero integration. Very few black communities have been able to raise themselves out of poverty. And I think even though South Africa is heralded as this massive success story of restorative justice, there is still very much an anger felt by both communities, and that's coming out in all the protests that are currently happening funnily enough, in places where you think there would be education. So
anybody know where restorative justice or the principles of restorative justice comes from? Where are the origins of restorative justice? In which communities or what type of societies are restorative justice principles most common?
Especially Christian English, they would talk about the rehabilitation of offenders. Wasn't that something that was in the 17th century England?
No.
The Aboriginal and First Nations peoples.
Exactly.
No.
Why might that be, do we think? Why is this concept of restoring the relationships of the whole community, or within the whole community, why is that so important for an Aboriginal or First Nation community?
Well, would it be to do with the fact that, so, like, if taking as example Aboriginal communities in America, there were so many different tribes. So when they were, essentially when the Native American genocide was happening, it brought the tribe leaders together to come up with a solution to what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just hypothesising myself here, could it be that we've become such an individualised society in the majority of countries from which we come?
It's kind of ideological, right? I mean, liberalism, neoliberalism seems to individualise everything. Since we ignore structural realities and things like that, to individualise you as a consumer, you as someone engaged in politics, you as basically an individual in all aspects of life.
I think there's a lot in that, and it's very intelligent. Absolutely. I think the individualisation of societies, whether it's as a consumer, as a political being, or as a family being, we're not really looking at the wider community, are we? That's not necessarily the instinct. It's not the instinct in a trial. It's not the instinct in the majority of transitional justice mechanisms. So let's just, for the last 5 minutes or so, talk in a bit more detail, setting up next week's discussion on TRCs. Talk about reconciliation. So what is it, and how does it happen?
There's a Nietzsche quote.
Okay.
He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. And thou gaze long into the abyss will gaze into him. That's how I feel about dehumanization. So what you do is you're trying to empathize with a psychopath who has no empathy.
Okay. First time Nietzsche's been quoted in class, so great, well done, thank you. Next one is good. Yeah. Okay. So it's seeing other people's point of view? Is it more than that? What is it? What's empathy?
Emotional connection between two bonds of emotion.
So Janine Clark was citing the scholar Stow, who wrote that reconciliation is mutual acceptance by groups of each other. The essence of reconciliation is a changed psychological orientation towards the other. Okay, so that's the essence of it. A changed psychological orientation towards the other. You're no longer demonizing them. You're no longer seeing them as different from you. And we're looking at this question of humanity, or the humanization, or rehumanization, because let's not forget that the Balkans, the former Yugoslavia, used to be one of the most successful nations in southern Europe. They were a multi-racial society living in harmony. The Yugoslav nation under Tito was very productive, had incredible sporting achievements, was a strong economy. And then in the space of 10 years or less, there was Milosevic and other nationalist leaders that had picked apart the fabric of that multicultural society, and pitted the neighbour against neighbour that resulted in all of the atrocities. So we're talking about, can the humanity that was once there in the social fabric be re-established after such strife and bitterness. Well, what's needed? We need empathy. Yeah, we need to rehumanise. We need to see the enemy, the other, as a human being. What else might it need? To be able to reconcile with somebody.
Essentially forgiveness. Let's go to both of them.
Okay. Does everyone agree with that? I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just saying there's a view. Forgiveness is a core principle of reconciliation, or can you reconcile without forgiving? What about the idea of responsibility, personal responsibility, or responsibility for your group? If you read a lot of the scholarship on the Balkans and the concepts of that the Serbs have towards the international community, they feel deeply victimised by the international community. And a lot of people as to whether that is because they have failed to take on board the harms that they have, Serbs have perpetrated. Similarly with other ethnicities in the Balkans. So failing to take responsibility for you or your own community's actions militates against seeing the humanity in the enemy, or the person that has been victimising you. And taking ownership as well is something that seems to be key. What about society and what role societal structures have to play in establishing conditions for reconciliation?
Trust.
Trust. Yeah. How can society foster trust in a transitional environment? What things can it do?
Education.
Absolutely, education.
I only can answer question. Rules.
At least create a sense of trust in Germany, not to at least commit and so there has now been a reconciliation.
Good, absolutely. So this concept of collectivising your responsibility, Germany is a good example. So some big concepts we're grappling with, that we always do in transitional justice. Anyone got any final thoughts before we leave it until next week? Right.
Well, I feel like a big element of reconciliation, and even restorative justice to a certain extent, that sometimes I think about is the element of time. Because you can only sort of gauge reconciliation as having taken place over a period of time. So when you think about changing people's emotions and attitudes and feelings towards a certain group or towards perpetrators, that is only able to quantify days over time.
Yes.
And if time lapses and triggers that originally caused the atrocities occurred then, and the atrocities are repeated, then there is no reconciliation to be seen or done. So only after the lapse of time and can really quantifiable reconciliation is what justice would say.
I think that's a great point to end on, and I'll wrap it up with a quote from Helen Scarr, who says that reconciliation is a process rather than a goal. And with that, I'll see you all next week. For Truth Commissions, I'll